Hello, everyone. Welcome to Ohm School Live. We are welcoming all comments to come on in. This is going to be, and we're going to open the platform up a little earlier. And today we are talking about jealousy. Ooh, the green-eyed monster and envy and all those things that you just even cringe when you think about. And one of the things really comes up around jealousy and being spiritual. We think for some reason that we are enlightened now, so we'll never experience jealousy, or nobody else should experience this, and we're all going to be happy, and nobody will want for anything. But this isn't the case. we are these human beings that do this. So I've brought this to our master spiritual teacher here, GP Walsh, about jealousy. And you wrote something, GP, in the light letter, that jealousy is actually a symptom. It's not the cause. So, I often think, no, wait a second. I'm jealous because they have something and I don't, or I had it and I lost it, or all these things. So let's open the floor about jealousy and what is the assault on us so much? Why does it hurt so much to have jealousy?
Well, like I said, jealousy isn't the problem. Jealousy is the symptom, right? And the underlying problem is a sense of lack. If I don't have a sense of lack, I'm not jealous of anybody. Why? Why would I be, right? So that has to be there first, right? So you could just take your attention off of the jealousy and the envy, which are horrible feelings, by the way. But they're so horrible. And people love to criticize them because people always love to criticize the symptoms. Why is your nose dripping? You shouldn't be dripping that nose. Well, I got a cold, for Christ's sake. I don't care about that. Stop that nose. I mean, that's the way we think about it. So it feels bad because there's an intense feeling of being left out, of being left behind, of not having your needs met. And if we want to go, right directly to the source of it, we have to go to the place where our needs really weren't met, and that became locked in as a permanent assumption on the energetic level, which you can also call the unconscious, but I prefer the energetic because unconscious has got overhead to it. It's just on a level where assumptions are made about the nature of things, and they get frozen in that position because we are really helpless and vulnerable, and it is a condition, at least, and it's relatively permanent. I mean, if your parents aren't meeting your needs, that's a relatively permanent condition. Even though it won't be that way forever, it's there long enough that the whole energy system just assumes it's always going to be there and goes about compensating for it. But if we were like robots or animals or something, we would simply accept the fact that this was the case, and there would be no internal conflict about it, right? It's a very subtle thing to notice that there's got to be something inside that says, no, this isn't right, in order for us to feel some kind of a conflict. Right? If we were completely programmable, then we'd be programmed, we'd be that way, and there'd be like, yeah, no problem. It'd be kind of like, the alphas and betas, like in, Brave New World, right? If you were a delta, you were fine with being a delta. That's, no big deal. But so it indicates that there's something inherent in us, something deep in us that knows that this isn't right. That knows that somehow this sense of lack, this not getting your needs met, is not a natural condition. It's artificial and should be resisted. Okay? And that's where this conflict comes up. But when we're not aware of it on that level, we only feel it on the superficial level. And that's where it pops out the side and says, oh, they've got that. Why don't I? Life isn't fair. I should have that too. I do as much work. I do more work than they do. Why do they have all the rewards, right? And I got nothing.
Right. I want to clarify the one word that was really big here is our needs aren't met. And when you say needs, I'm going to immediately go to external needs. However, does it stop there? Are we talking about internal needs at all at this level, or is it just our external needs are not being met?
Well, when you're a child, there's very little difference.
Yeah.
Right? Everything is interconnected, right?
Okay.
And so later on in life, we make the difference between us, and people can have very little in terms of their physical needs and stuff, be very happy, right? You know, you can have very happy couples and families, right, that don't have a lot. As a matter of fact, if you look at the UN's happiness index, it's the poor countries that are always on top. The rich ones are down at the bottom, right? So it has nothing to do with that. There's something else there, right? That's active, and so it's all levels of need, right? And if my internal, and what are the internal needs? The needs to feel valuable, to feel loved, to feel purposeful, to feel, that I belong in a community, that I've bonded, that I'm worth having my needs met. Because that's the thing with the kid. If your needs aren't being met, it's interpreted always as, well, I'm not good enough to get them met. It's my own fault. So you see, they're dovetail. You really can't separate them. And the same thing happens really as an adult. It's, sometimes we can see, oh, that's just circumstantial, my turn will come. But most of the time it's reverberating with that deeper sense inside that is just assumes it's not going to get its needs met. I mean, it's an energetic assumption, right? It's a conviction. It's more than just a thought. It's a deeply held conviction.
Many of us will react, and I think I'm going to say all of us have our own little way of reacting, adapting. Some will be violent and angry when they're jealous, and some people will be, that's not for me, then I'm going to be, close off. We all react so many different ways. Is that why? I don't want to say why it is what I think. I'm going to ask you why is that we act so differently? Is it just where we are along our spiritual journey, or has it nothing to do with that? It's not like, oh, well, I'm more enlightened and evolved, so I'm going to react this way.
If you say I'm more enlightened and evolved, and so I'm going to choose to act this way, you're not enlightened or evolved.
Right. Right.
You've just opted for the appearance of a spiritual behavior, which is just another way to compensate for the pain.
See, I tried tricking him there, guys, and I didn't get him. Right.
No, not stumping the guru today.
So then we're bringing up pain. And so whenever we witness ourselves or others in that state, that symptom of jealousy, this is coming from pain, and it can snowball. So say it was when they were little, but now they've actually, are they still receiving that I'm not good enough or validation? Like they're being reinforcing that along their way.
Yes. Well, that's what happens. The underlying energetic assumptions interpret experience from that point of view.
Ooh, yes.
So it doesn't see experience as neutral or just circumstantial or just, well, this is the way it went, right? The roll of the dice kind of thing. It sees it went that way because, and it always refers back to the energetic assumption. That's the reference point of interpretation. That's the foundation upon which the storyteller mind builds its view of the world.
So the storyteller is the one who is jealous.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, the storyteller, it's complicated. I mean, the storyteller is just layers and layers of behaviors and thoughts and beliefs and the like to try to compensate for the deep wounds, right? To explain them, right? I mean, the job of the storyteller mind, and it's a real thing psychologically and neurologically. It's it's not something that I made up. I think I started calling it that, but it is a function. Because there's just a part of us and a part of the neurology that has to make sense of the environment. It needs a map of reality, right? And that map is built out of assumptions, right? And if I have a certain assumption and the environment keeps feeding back to me a confirmation of that, well, it sinks in very deeply, not realizing that no matter what, if the assumption is in deep enough, no matter what the environment gives me, I will accept it as a confirmation of the assumption, even if it's a total contradiction.
Right. That's why, like in those fits of rage of jealousy, and they say, "This is why you always do this," or something.
This always happens to me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, you're proving it. You're witnessing it. You're seeing it.
Yeah, it's an ongoing confirmation.
Right. Now, in this place of, see, that'd be very difficult. So we've got a whole map created here of assumptions. I like that. Well, that doesn't sound very nice, but at least I can visualize it. Got all my assumptions. Here's the map, but I'm going here because of this and this and this. And can it externally just change somehow? And all of a sudden I'm like, hey, I usually get this and I didn't get this. This is different. Or do I have to start seeing it differently before it can be
well, remember that while at a certain level this stuff is in there very solidly, that the nervous system is adapting, right? And it can, without a lot of input in from us, get information, get input from the environment that it becomes aware of, and that assumption begins to adjust. Now, that can happen consciously or unconsciously. I mean, self-inquiry is doing that consciously, providing the environment where where those assumptions can be looked at, right? But not with the head, within the whole nervous system, right? But for the most part, what'll happen is something will happen that contradicts it, and the assumption will just find a way to either diminish it, ignore it, push it to the side. It was a fluke, right? It's the exception that proves the rule kind of thing. Because those assumptions are really powerful, because if you take those away, it's like the whole nervous system doesn't know how to function without them in the world.
Right. Yeah. So is jealousy a protection mechanism? So we've narrowed it down that jealousy is a symptom. Is it also a protection mechanism, or is it actually still just harming us?
Well, it is like any kind of behavior that arises. It serves a purpose, right? But it's if I can, they shouldn't get that, right? They don't deserve that. I don't deserve that. Why do they get that? Is an attempt to insulate myself from the pain of lack, the pain of not getting my needs met. And again, there's lots of levels to it, because sometimes what we think are our needs aren't really our needs. We become very aggressive towards all sorts of things, hoping that they're going to be the thing that fills up the gap, right? That somehow something in the external can actually fill this gap, which it can't, because nothing external can unseat an assumption. It will always interpret it.
Nothing external can do what with the assumption?
Unseat an assumption.
Unseat. Thank you. Okay. Okay.
And so jealousy is kind of a way of condemning the environment for not fulfilling your needs. and in that sense, it is protective in its nature, but it's protecting an assumption that you really want to be without, right?
Yeah. So, okay, that is powerful. So it's not like protecting the enemy. We're protecting the assumption, which is, yes, in its turn, protecting us. Is it ever healthy to have jealousy? Should there be a level?
Well, I mean, you could talk. It really depends on the energy and the spirit behind it. I mean, when I was a musician and I'd play with musicians who were better than me, I was like, Yeah, it was like, God damn, right? But but what happened? I was back in the woodshed. I was working it out, right? And I also noticed that when I was playing with people who were better than me, that I played better. So I was just kind of absorbing all of that, and that's a different kind of thing, hanging, spending time in the presence of a master, right, with humility, even though you aspire to that same level, it's not the same as being jealous of it, right? Jealousy cuts you off from it. It insulates you from it. Whereas just that open-heartedness that wants to grow and evolve that's a completely different thing.
Yes. Yeah, that's definitely different. One is I almost sometimes when I'm saying like, oh, I'm so jealous, I'm like, well, or maybe I'm envious, or, I try to find the right vibration of that word. But do you find that people who have grown up with siblings or, you learn a lot about jealousy, is it because I'm imagining that child, they're the one little child, it's just me and mom and dad and the world is perfect. And then they went and brought home another baby. And now I've got to share and then they start witnessing like, oh, that new baby is getting what I have. Is it way back then that we as little babies start going, I'm not getting as much because they're getting it, or I don't like the way that they're getting it, that's mine, they shouldn't have it. Is it back then that we do this, or is that not even
yeah, and that's actually perfectly natural, because the child's suddenly not getting the attention that it did before, and that's when it requires some really good parenting to keep bringing them into the process, right? And I watch how my son is with my granddaughter, who would turn 6, shortly after her little sister was born, or turned 5, right, shortly after, right? And I see a little bit of it, right, because she isn't everything now like she's been for the last 5 years. But I also see her actively engaged, feeding her and picking her up and watching her and making sure she doesn't fall off of things and the like. So there's a beautiful kind of love that can emerge in siblings, also on top of the jealousy. And usually, if it's healthy, the the jealousy will just fall away with childhood, and the love will continue. And the more each are just encouraged to be themselves and loved as themselves, the easier that is. So there's a certain amount in every child. Am I going to lose my parents' attention and affection? And every child experiences it. It's inevitable, right? And because it's a very natural fear of ours, and so it really requires the parents to be aware of that and to give them all the attention they possibly can, and call him Grandpa when needed.
I've shared this before on the show, but I remember my first pang of jealousy was when I heard from the Bible, love thy neighbor as they would thyself, kind of thing. And I was like, Baba, Papa, I don't want mom and dad to love their neighbor as much as me. Come on here. What's going on? I got really upset about it and went to them and stated my complaint. I thought, oh, I don't like this business. And if we're going up to heaven and I get up there and you've got somebody else, you're hugging, I'm going to have a little bit of problem with this. And so it was, I was so scared as a child thinking that. And so this equality thing can show up for, I think, a lot of us. And I know that in the spiritual world, as we're running along our path, we might, what I was coming up with this theme and this topic is when we see somebody else and we think, wow, they're so much further along this journey. There's, back to that word again, they're so enlightened and they're so this. Why can't I get there? I've got so much garbage to get through. Where that leaves us is really like back to I'll never get there. I'm not good enough. Why? They must have had great karma. We always have to do that. But how can we pull ourselves out, I guess, is from that state of just always comparing to others?
Well, it's It's just part of the habit. Yeah. If you recognize that it's being driven by your own sense of lack, you can stop focusing on them and start putting the attention in the place where you can actually know some relief and healing, which is to transcend that sense of lack, which is an energetic pattern that got instilled because at one time you really didn't get your needs met, and it really was real at one time, and then it became an assumption, which then projects itself on all circumstances. So you see through the lens of that eye. So every time you would feel that kind of jealousy, you turn away from the jealousy itself and into the feeling that is there, and see if you can. And if you do that enough times, the actual feeling of lack will begin to emerge and become clearer. And if you spend enough time being really present with it, your presence becomes the antidote to what you didn't get before, which is simply that genuine presence and self-acceptance. Self-acceptance means if I accept my feelings as they are, even a feeling of jealousy or lack or pain that's coming up, if I can allow myself to feel that, I'm doing for myself what I didn't get before, which is an acceptance of myself as I am. And we always want to reject these feelings because I shouldn't be jealous, which now places another layer on top of it of trying to suppress the behaviors and trying to get rid of those feelings and the thoughts that go along with it, which is impossible. You can't do it. So don't even bother. Instead, be willing to be present with, okay, I'm feeling really jealous right now. Everything that's going on about the jealousy and these feelings and these thoughts that why it's not fair and life is not fair and it all sucks mud and just keep coming back to it. Just keep coming right back to that place. And it doesn't even matter what it is. They've got they're married and have families now, and I'm still working in a Starbucks or something, right? All of these things can pop up. And if it becomes about the feelings and an acceptance of the feelings, then you are, in fact, giving yourself what you really need, which is enlightened attention.
Ooh, I like that word, enlightened attention. So imagining, and I'm welcoming and inviting all the comments that you have. If something is coming up for you that you're like, yeah, I have some jealousy feelings around this that maybe I haven't, or lack that you're not enough, and that you really are feeling the pain from that. I'm imagining somebody right now going, yep, okay, totally feeling jealous. I literally hate that they have this and that I don't. I just want to, how can we soften it so right now I'm imagining people that some clients went through some jealousy last week, and I hate that other person. They're not even able to witness themselves in it. So how can we begin? Where is it we can begin that it's just at least not about another person? And just to say this, a lot of other people might say, well, they are making me jealous. They're doing that on purpose, to make me jealous. Is that possible, first of all, or it has to exist in us first?
Well, it's got to exist. It's got to exist in you first, or nobody could push that button, right? But yeah, there are people out there who are just more than happy to lord it over you. Yeah. I won, you didn't.
Yeah, why do they do that?
Because they're assholes.
Yeah. Hey.
Well, because for whatever reason they have got these things, and now they're taking it as if somehow they're better, right? That somehow their effort, I'm the self-made man or woman, right? And they'll have it, which is completely ignorant, right? Is a complete denial of the nature of life and karma and the circumstances and all the stuff that allowed, there's so many things that come together for somebody to be getting the things that they want, right? As opposed to somebody who isn't, that nobody in their right mind would take credit for it, right? LeBron James can't take credit for being the amazing basketball player. He was born that way, Stevie Wonder came out of the womb playing the harp, right? Come on. This is, Mozart was writing music at 3. I mean, I'm sorry, they didn't earn it, right?
Right.
It's just, and if you really understood that, yeah, the potential to be jealous or the potential to lord it over somebody simply wouldn't exist, right? You would see that this is a temporary condition that emerged, right? A phenomenal one, and I'm at the center, and I'm enjoying all of it right now. But like everything else, it's temporary. It can fall away.
Yeah. Can we highlight that it's okay to not have earned something? I'd like to highlight that. Like it's okay that you had something amazing or have something amazing, and you didn't earn it. That's okay. It's not like, okay, well, because
Yeah.
I hear a lot of people who are jealous and they go, well, they were in an accident, they got insurance, they didn't earn that house, or they didn't earn, whatever it is they have. And it's
Yeah.
somehow some people feel better when they think that, well, they've worked hard for it, so they deserve it. There's that twist in there as
Yeah.
well.
Well, that's just our cultural assumption, and it's one of the things, the dark side of that is if it doesn't come your way, they're more than happy to tell you you didn't earn it, right? You didn't work hard enough. You hear some of these guys, like one in particular, who will remain nameless. Well, work 20 hours a day, you lazy fuck. I mean, he really says stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
And it's just toxic. It's just toxic, and they'll all say all the same things. All the people, the billionaires talk about, how they did it on their own, which is all nonsense. It's all utter nonsense, and which means, okay, well then I'm just a failure. I either don't have the ability at all, or I'm just too lazy, or on and on, which justifies all sorts of horrific things in a society as well. How it treats people, because now, well, it's your own fault. Everything is your own fault. And picking that stuff up, it gets believed on a very fundamental level, because it's so ingrained in the culture. We pick it up as kids, that it is my fault, right? and the parents believe it is, right? There's something wrong, and picking that up, it just echoes throughout your entire life, and you can see it, and it's not true. It's not true. None of us have earned any of it. Nothing has been earned, right? No credit and no blame. Everything has been just this perpetual flowing of what you can call karma, right? And if you happen to be riding the crest of the wave, don't hold on to it, because the trough isn't far behind.
Yeah. Now, I'm loving that you brought up about it's not your fault, because, sorry to say Susanna, but Creative Revolution has brought up something here about jealousy, about another woman and things like that. And that's an interesting one. So if we are in a beautiful relationship and there's another woman who's witnessing this and she's jealous, but the woman in the relationship, did she not earn or create that healthy relationship? Now I'm going a little bit in circles, because if it's not your fault, that means it's not your doing either, in a good way. So it's not your
Correct.
fault that you didn't earn it. So let's do
correct.
those two things. So when somebody else witnesses another woman, like, hey, I'm really jealous of that other woman, or I'm jealous of you, or this or that, is it to us to say, hey, you know what? They didn't either earn it or cause it as a fault. So I'm just going to step back and not judge. Is that where we go?
Well, that's basically it. But then people will step back and judge God, right?
Oh,
God did that for them, not for me. Yeah, and this is the way that cookie crumbles, right? People do that kind of thing because somebody's got to be doing it, right? Right? Why does my life suck so bad? If to come to terms with the fact that life is just happening, you haven't been singled out. You're not to blame for any of this, and you don't get any of the credit for this, right? Then you simply ride through life in equanimity. It's the place of total evenness. It's the middle way, right? Where you're happy to see it come, you're happy to see it go, that there will be adversity and then there will be pleasures. They will both happen. And the key to living a truly happy life is when you can sit in the middle and accept both as they are, realizing nobody's at fault for it. Nobody gets the credit, that this is simply the yin yang of life. And when you get to that place, you have transcended the yin yang in life, are in a state of perpetual happiness, because now there's nothing to disturb you. There's nothing you want. There's nothing you resist. There's nothing you grab onto. There's nothing you hold on to. And it's a very transcendent state, and it is one that takes practice to arrive at, because of simply the nature of the way we have been conditioned to believe or to act. But that is the practice of establishing within ourselves this pure equanimity that can be present with anything and never get disturbed, be completely imperturbable, without that imperturbability depending on a circumstance. Because if it depends on a circumstance, I am inevitably going to feel strain, struggle, grasping, trying to hold on to it. I will be feeling fear. I will be feeling a desire that becomes lust. And I will be unhappy. Yeah. And sometimes we get what we want, sometimes we don't. That's just the fact of life. And there's nobody doing it. And if you don't get what you want, it's not because somebody else got it.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. And I do want to make a correction. That was Kathy who brought that up, not Suzanne. I apologize. The word mistreated is coming to mind. So when I'm thinking about you're jealous because you think it is unfair, and now you're being mistreated. Let's actually use the scenario of a couple, and you're jealous because, well, actually, there's a difference there. Jealousy is a thought, it's an assumption, but then if you are being mistreated and your partner is not being quote unquote faithful or doing this, then you I guess you have to watch which lens you are viewing this from, like the jealousy lens or an actual self-loving lens.
Well, it becomes a very complex kind of intricate thing between two people. There's a whole different dynamic of it as to why would somebody cheat? Well, their needs aren't being met, right? And that doesn't let them off the hook. What are their needs? Because they're just going to go somewhere else to try to meet it in a superficial way, right? So it's not a justification of it, right? And then somebody else will say, well, it's all my fault, right? I put on weight, or I wasn't taking care of myself, or I had 3 babies, for crying out loud. What am I supposed to do now? And you can see it's all just self-recrimination and the like, and it's neither one is accepting things as they are, right? Okay. And working with things as they are, and if somebody's not happy with themselves, with their lives, you can't just let's put you on a diet or send you to the gym or something. That you have to get to the underlying discontent, right? That gives rise to those things, to the emotional patterns that lead to all of the various kinds of social habits that we've acquired that are all unhealthy. Just an unparalleled level of addictions.
Yes. The not happy with I can't read my writing now. It's okay. Not happy with the way things are when we are not with ourselves. When we're not happy with ourselves, is it truly that now we're working on a level of self-acceptance? But if we really aren't happy with those things, here's an example. I remember years ago working with a very obese person, hundreds of pounds overweight. And, and they're like, I'm sick and tired of people saying to me that I should just love myself the way I am. I don't. They don't love the 300 pounds. They don't love this. So right. That's a tricky place to be. You go, okay, well, I am unhappy. I don't like where I am.
No, it's not tricky. The mind makes it much more tricky than it is. It's not really tricky at all. Of course, you're not happy being 300 pounds overweight. We're not talking about that. We're looking, what is the cause of that created the physical results, right? The various kinds of habits that had accumulated that allowed that to happen, right? If you just look at on the superficial level, then then you say, well, be happy the way you are. It's a ridiculous thing to ask somebody, right? Yeah. Be happy that you're flat on behind your back and you can't move. Yeah, be happy about it. It has nothing to do with this. This kind of happiness I'm talking about is one that is willing to look at all the various causes and conditions that make that result. We don't say be happy with the result. Be happy with, how do you become happy with you? That will give different results. That there was a denial and a rejection of yourself that led to all of the causes and conditions that eventually led to this state you find yourself in now. And all along the way, stuff has been accumulating, literally and figuratively. The emotional eating, the self-denial, the self-protection, right? Yeah. I know a lot of women, very attractive women, who put on a lot of weight because they were just tired of being, unconsciously became tired of being objectified. Yeah. Yes. So there's all sorts of things that go into it, and if we don't look at those, it doesn't matter how severe the treatment is. It will make a temporary connection, but it'll either come back exactly the same or come out in some other form, right?
Yeah. When we're looking at that and we've got all these symptoms coming up, like, I'm this way, so I'm jealous of this. And now we're starting to unwind this. And we're saying, okay, can we ask the question right away? So what is this unmet need, or what are my unmet needs? Is that a question we can jump into, or is that that's way jumping into the deep end on a
No, I think it's the right question to ask, right? Because now you're asking the question at the right level. And you'll also recognize that when you ask that question, you don't have a clue as to what the answer is, right? Because we've been so used to working with the results of that we don't have any real experience of making the inquiry at that level. Right? So what really happened? Where is this come? Where did the feeling of lack come from that I've just assumed is a reality of life? Is it? Is it really just the reality of life? Or is this an assumption that because I've assumed it to be, it has been manifesting in my life? But this assumption is on a much deeper level than just my head, because I can challenge it in my head, but it doesn't budge. And not only does I see it in me, I see it all over the place. I see it manifested in all sorts. So I'm constantly getting this information. So it's obviously I'm not the only one that has this, right? How now do I get to that at the most essential level that stands a chance of actually dissolving it? Right? And we come face to face with it as an assumption. Right? How many people would be even willing to consider the notion that lack isn't real? What?
Answer that. I'll have everybody put their hand up on that.
It does not exist. Right? Which is the actual fact. Right? But how do you approach that? You look around, you see lack all over the place. Homeless people and wars and and fighting over resources. And I don't have a partner and they do, and we see it all everywhere, right? So how can some stupid old guy with white hair say, no, it doesn't exist? How can anybody say that? But if you listen to that and are at least willing to consider the possibility that maybe this is a worldwide delusion that we've all been living under, because it's quite possible, right? And that it doesn't actually exist as a fact, but exists as an experience because it is a belief, it is assumed to be the truth.
You brought a really good thing around for me there. A belief that has been, so an assumption has been made and now it's turned into my belief. I'm gonna bust a myth on here on everything about affirmations then. So when we our experience, if our experience has been jealousy because of our unmet needs, and we see lack and we're afraid of having lack, and I don't want that to happen to me, and I want this but I can't because this, and then I'm upset because they have it and I don't. There's like a whack of beliefs there and assumptions. So me laying affirmations, or it's just another false belief that I don't, that has not met my needs. So do an inquiry. I want to bring in the difference between an inquiry versus assumptions. An assumption, no, affirmation, sorry. An affirmation cannot meet any needs.
Affirmation is lipstick on the pig. It's wallpaper.
Because it really doesn't. You're right. Like an affirmation will not meet my need unless it's an affirmation that I really truly do believe and that is helping me.
The mind can be convinced of anything, even if it's not true. So I can make an affirmation that's different, right? Convince myself that it's true and have the experience of it. Self-inquiry is looking for the truth, not just a better version of things. It wants to know what is true. If I get to the truth, I don't have to worry about affirmations. I don't have to worry about it ever flopping away on me and becoming something else. I don't have to worry about losing it. It's the truth. It kind of holds all the cards, right? It is, and it doesn't change. That's where I want to be. That's the rock. Otherwise, I am building on sand, because anything short of the truth, a cultural belief, is going to shift, right? And I will find myself, out of the game, right? Even if I'm riding high and I'm on the top, it could all collapse tomorrow. Right? Yeah. And oftentimes it does, right?
Speaking of that part, and then I'm going to pull in some stories and questions and comments about, say we are jealous about something. We've got somebody else who makes way more money than we do, and we're really jealous. So we decide, you know what? I'm not going to be friends with them anymore. I can't have them in my face. So off we go. There we go. I'm not going to talk to them, or jealous, or about anything. Can we fix it that way? Like, just so that's not like, should we be relieving ourselves a little bit? Like, hey, so let's just get it out of my face so that I can deal with it. Or it's like, hey, look at that, and I'm not jealous anymore.
Well, if the effort to transcend the jealousy, to get to the root of the jealousy, is sincere, then kind of withdrawing from all the triggers temporarily may be a useful thing to do. It's like going on a retreat, right? When you go on a retreat, you step out of all of the regular triggers in your world to get yourself to a place that is more safe, so that you can begin to do the deeper work. So as just a way of avoiding triggers, well, that doesn't dismantle the button. It's still there, and at some point you're going to run into it again, right? So just insulating yourself. I mean, it's like somebody living in a gated community with a bunch of other, multimillionaires, right? They insulate themselves from life, and they think, this, and they have no idea. They have no idea what actual life is like. I mean, the ultra rich live in a different culture than you and I do.
Yes.
They have no clue whatsoever, no direct experience. It was beautiful, because I mean, that's kind of the whole experience that was attributed, at least legendarily, to Buddha, right? Raised as a prince, just never saw pain, never saw suffering, which of course is impossible. He did, but he was so insulated from the world that he had no idea what world was like out there. And when he finally saw it, it just shook him to his core, right? But it's the same as extremely wealthy people now, and they have jealousy of each other.
Yes. Yeah.
He's got 20 billion. I've only got 15. It's like, what the? It's like,
and that can make us, when we have unmet needs that we believe, they truly believe that they need more, or they're jealous of that on any level. It motivates us, so to speak, to do things that we wouldn't normally otherwise do, but because we are adapting to the environment, we are going to do those things.
Say that again. Oh. I didn't follow that.
So regardless of what level we're experiencing jealousy, on the very, like an ultra rich person being, whether we think that's
Right.
valuable or not, or valid or not, but our behaviors will do something to keep us safe to meet those needs. So
Mhm.
then now we're at the mercy of our nervous system adapting to keep us safe. So that's why we want to do the self-inquiry around this, is so that we're not at the mercy of our human body adapting and having us take actions that we don't
Yes.
really
Only
want taking.
only self inquiry will create the environment of love and truth that the nervous system can adapt to.
Mm.
Otherwise, it will always be trying to adapt to constantly changing circumstances based on its assumptions. Right? So if the billionaire who's jealous of another billionaire is feeling exactly the same sense of lack and assuming the same lack that you are.
Exactly. Yes.
There is no difference, right? It's still the same. There's nothing about having a lot or not having a lot that has any effect on this whatsoever.
Yes.
So when you inquire into it, you begin to change the inner environment. And that's what the nervous system responds to. That's the adaptation that doesn't go backwards, that doesn't fluctuate, doesn't go from the crest to the trough. It's forever on the still ocean.
Mm. Beautiful. Oh, that seems calmer too. I just, could feel that coming over you. I want to say, a Facebook user very recently, for the first time, accepted this feeling of jealousy, and it was very much what I needed. I know it will come back, but I had a glimpse, which is a lot to me. And here, a few days later, you pick up this topic. Oh, crazy. Okay, awesome. Now, that's interesting. Like, why, is it just a natural state where we go, you know what? I'm accepting this feeling of jealousy. Is it just a place we come to?
That's self-acceptance. That's
Oh,
why it feels so good. That is exactly what you didn't get as a kid. You weren't allowed to feel what you felt. And so your feelings start being rejected. That's the self-rejection. That's the existential crisis. That's the first trauma. I'm not allowed to be myself. And so if you just let yourself feel like, damn, I'm really jealous. And you can let all the venom be there and the like, but if you don't indulge it, and I'm letting it be there, it doesn't mean going off on a rant. It's just noticing that feeling is there, and it wants to go off on a rant. And if you really feel into it, you'll feel there's a pain there, there's a hurt there, there's a fear there, there's all sorts of things that are there that have been there the whole time. There's the real source of it. You're now beginning to touch the roots. And when you start touching the roots in love and acceptance, you heal them.
That is so true. Gosh, I always get excited after the show. I'm like, oh, I'm going to sit down and figure out what's going on. Where's my guilt? I like this.
Don't do that.
No, don't do that. Why don't do that, actually?
Because it becomes theoretical. The mind is now off trying to make something happen.
That's right.
You want to be thoroughly engaged with life in the moment. So it's when it comes up that you want to deal with it. You don't want it comes up and go, oh, I make a note of that and I'll get to that in the next tapas monks or something. No, right then, it's there now. Right?
That's so true.
When I work with people, I intentionally trigger them. Are you feeling that now? Well, no. Can you feel it now? Bring it up. Think about that person that's got all the good stuff that you want. And it'll be there, right? Boom, it's there. Now we can deal with it. You can't deal with it when you're just thinking about it like it's a memory. Right. You can't heal a memory.
Everybody, that was extremely valuable. I have to say that, because I have had a session with you, GP, and I get there and I'm all happy, just like ready to go. And you guys like, oh, right, how are we going to do with this? And you have to bring me, it's like, well, what did that feel like? And it does take a while, because you're right. I can't just put on a list like, all right, GP, I would like to work with this, and this right now. It
Yes.
really is being present.
And I pay no attention to what you think you want to work on.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, Bernadette, I just wrote that down. You can't heal a memory. And Maria, from YouTube here, I read a meme recently and it said, jealousy is counting another person's blessings and not your own. That's good.
It's very true. It's very
Yeah.
true. And then the question you want to ask is, well, why? Why is it so much easier to count somebody else's other than my own?
Yes, why?
Now it's a self-inquiry. Now it's back to you, right? Where's that coming from? Remember this, we can just say, oh, okay, I'm going to count my own blessings. I'm not going to count those. You're trying to force something to happen. You're forcing a behavioral shift, which is, we're always going to be unstable, right? They're not trustworthy, right? Because it's using the mind to fix the mind. So instead, you keep probing into the question, well, where did that come from? Right? And why do I believe that? Why can't I see my own blessings? Right? Do I really not have any? Or am I just not seeing them? Right? Am I comparing them to somebody else's and they're not adequate? And if you're asking these kinds of questions, the attention is focused on you. Right? Notice you very naturally just start withdrawing from the external environment, and it's a self-inquiry. And if you make that with honesty, it's a loving thing to do. This is how you love yourself. This is how you give yourself that kind of quality attention that you didn't get. It matters, when I watch a good parent. My son's a good parent. I love watching him, how he sits and works with our feelings. And somebody will come up and goes, it's a feeling. Let yourself feel that. I don't want to realize it's okay, but it's just a feeling. Watch it for a moment. And eventually, kids are very expressive. There's not a lot of editing going on.
Right.
And she'll be really upset about something because, something, and it will be playing a board game or something like that, and something will come up and she just, I'm gonna play, and she'll go storming off or something like that. It's how you handle those moments will determine, whether or not it becomes an energetic assumption or just becomes something that's passing by. And the assumptions will be far more open and self-loving.
It's interesting. It's always a question of, when you are a parent or how you've been parented, did I do the right thing, do everything? I'm just going to share a funny thing. My sister hates losing. She's always hated losing as a child. And so she eventually didn't want to play any kind of game. And so my father and mother found a game called, not even joking, the Ungame. Like there was no winners, no losers. It was just the Ungame. And that was the game my sister would be okay to play.
That's good. That's good.
But so this has been such an interesting show around jealousy. I wasn't I don't have any expectation usually, but I really wasn't expecting it to go to. I really thought we were going to heal jealousy, but it's not about that at all. It's really about exploring what needs were unmet and how
to meet them.
How to meet them yourself.
Yeah, because the needs are always a need for self-love. That's always what the need is, right? And no adjustment to a certain external circumstance, however good, is going to be able to touch that because it's external, right? Nothing can show me the way to self-love, right? But the way to self-love is quite easy. Just allow yourself to feel what you're feeling. That's self-love. It is so direct and simple. It's not this pie in the sky thing out there somewhere. Just say right this moment. Can you simply accept it? You don't even have to like it. Just accept the fact that it's here. Right? Okay, it's here. Oh God, this feels horrible. But it's here. Right? And all right, it's here. What else am I going to do with it? That's self-love. Love is not fine china. Right? It's earthy. It shows up with a dirty face. right? It's a mud wrestler.
I do love that self-allowing is self-love. That's beautiful. I think that's a valuable lesson right there. And I was going to just ask if we could, before we sign off really quickly, Lava Light here says the jealousy experience now is those living unshakably in present awareness. If we were going to sit with that, do a self-inquiry, where might we go with that one?
Well, if you're going to be jealous of something, that's the thing to be jealous of, first off, right? Not the billionaire, but the sage. But yes, I wish I was there, right? Okay, so why aren't you? What is it that seems to stand in the way of you and that unshakable sense of being who you actually are? And not feeling that, does it change the fact that that is who you really are? The truth doesn't change, remember? So the truth of you is always going to be the truth of you. I don't always experience the truth of me. I experience beliefs and assumptions, which all revolve around an image that I hold of myself, right? But does that change the truth of who I actually am? Now, there's the rock, right? It means that it doesn't matter how long it takes or what process I have to go through, that truth is always going to be there. It will never abandon me. And so I want more than anything to dwell in that unshakable sense of pure presence that is the self. That desire is the highest prayer a human being can offer. And if you are in that sense jealous of the sage, then you pay attention to them. You listen. You aspire to what they've aspired to, right? And if there's a sense of jealousy, I wish I had that, it'll simply be transmuted into an aspiration, the highest aspiration there is. This is the highest aspiration. This is the whole reason you have a human birth. And that you've been exposed to those who are dwelling unshakably in present awareness, and recognize it as such. Do you realize what that means? Thousands of lifetimes, none of this has mattered, right? And all of a sudden, you're not only aware of it, you're aware of people who are living that, and you want it. This is something to celebrate. It's glorious. The wheel of the Dharma is turning in your heart. And it will complete itself. It will complete itself. It doesn't rely on whether you do a good job or not. God's grace does not depend on you.
I always love how, GP, you offer us that space just to be who and how we are, and we can't go wrong. I love that so much. Thank you, Lava for asking that, and everybody here for doing their comments and highlighting some stuff. I so appreciate that, because there are some goodies and moments here that I'm like, we need this again. If you have any more questions about jealousy, envy, anything like this, how to maybe walk through a self-inquiry process, or if you would like to book a session with GP, you can have your own revolving around the jealousy matters and all the green-eyed monster as he comes out. And thank you, Susanna, for green earrings for today. So if you'd like to book a session to walk through this, then please do so. You can go to gpwalsh.com, work with me, which is GP. And we just really appreciate you being here so much. And we'll see you next Tuesday here on Om School Live. Thank you, GP.
Yeah. Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.